What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about the Sherman Antitrust Act and its perversion, its perverted use. And the reason it comes up is because, as you guys know, because I've told you before, I'm reading a couple of labor history books, and the one that I'm reading right now was discussing the story of Eugene Debs. It's funny because each book, chapter per chapter, they kind of cover the same subject matter. They just give me different perspectives from the authors. And so I'm in chapter 4, and it's discussing Eugene Debs again, and it talks about the Sherman Antitrust Act. And I got to a page today that was revealing, because when I was younger and searching my way through life and trying to figure out why life seems to be unfair when you don't have, and it seems like the haves always get all the benefits. And when I was going through this process in my younger years, I went down that rabbit hole of conspiracy theory and the boogeymen of the Illuminati and the 13 families and all this other conspiracy theories that are out there. They talk about the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and J.P. Morgan and all these people, these industrialists. And as I'm reading these labor books, I'm learning more and more about how things have come about. And so today I came across a page that really was enlightening and kind of lets you know where all these conspiracy theories are rooted in and where it comes from. At any rate, let me try to explain what I mean, because it was mind blowing. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, ring the notification bell, drop some comments, ask some questions. Let's build the channel together. And without further ado, here we go. First, we're going to talk about the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 so that we know what it was intended to be used for, okay? The Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 is a United States antitrust law which prescribes the rule of free competition among those engaged in commerce. It was passed by Congress and is named for Senator John Sherman, its principal author. So the Sherman Act broadly prohibits anti-competitive agreements and unilateral conduct that monopolizes or attempts to monopolize the relevant market. So the act's intention was to stop companies from conspiring behind the scenes to fix prices and stuff of that nature. The act authorizes the Department of Justice to bring suits to enjoin, as in when you enjoin, you prohibit, conduct violating the act, and additionally authorizes private parties injured by conduct violating the act to bring suits for treble damages. That's 3 times the amount of cost. Over time, the federal courts have developed a body of law under the Sherman Act, making certain that types of anti-competitive conduct per se illegal and subjecting other types of conduct to case-by-case analysis regarding whether the conduct unreasonably restrains trade. So, you could dive in deeper on your own, but you could see here, generally speaking, the Sherman Act was supposed to be to stop big companies from becoming monopolies, okay, from unfair competition, right? But the Sherman Antitrust Act was used to imprison Eugene V. Debs, who was a labor organizer of the American Railway Union. That doesn't seem like what it was intended for when it was written, but it's how it was applied. Now, I want to read to you from this book, Labor's Untold Story. I want to read to you from the book. Mind blowing. All right. Anyway, here we go. Let me see if I can enlarge this because I'm blind. All right. In 1894, the Supreme Court of the United States found that the Sherman Antitrust Act did not apply to trusts. Trusts were agreements between multiple companies, created a board, had a chairman of the board that kind of controlled the whole thing. Trusts were monopolies. That's how it kind of all started out. The Supreme Court in 1894 said the Sherman Antitrust Act did not apply to trusts. It applied only, it developed, to labor. How did the Antitrust Act apply to labor? The Supreme Court in 1894 ruled that the Sherman Antitrust Act was specifically targeted at labor. It's crazy. That's one whole branch of government that decided that the Antitrust Act, which was written to stop businesses from becoming monopolies, was not written for that purpose. Instead, it was written to stop labor from gaining a fair shake. That was mind-blowing. But it gets deeper. Debs had been indicted for violation of the Antitrust Act, but no tycoon could suffer its penalties, according to the Supreme Court's decision in the Knight case. Following this decision, a great host of trusts and combinations and holding companies, price-fixing, wage-fixing monopolies, whatever their name, burgeoned immediately, many of them giants at birth. In the next 5 years, more than 300 great monopolies came into being, aided by the holding company, authorized by the laws of New Jersey, which permitted one corporation to dominate scores through holding their stock. So this is one corporation buying a majority share of the stock and then boom, off and running. So when the Supreme Court decided that the Sherman antitrust law targeted labor, and within 5 years, 300 monopolies popped up out of nowhere. The process of centralization seemed to increase at almost a daily rate. The extent as well as the tempo of the process is indicated in an official government document called the Final Report on the Industrial Commission, published in 1902. The document presented the following pertinent facts. This is straight from a government commission. The Final Report on Industrial Commission, published in 1902. Here it is, straight out of that study. The total number of industrial combinations reported by the census of 1900 is 183. The rapidity of the recent movement toward combination is shown by the fact that only 63 of these corporations were organized prior to 1897. That's 3 years prior. While no less than 79 were organized in 1899 alone. The nominal capitalization of the corporations was $3.6 billion. In many of the most important lines of industry, combinations have secured control of a large percentage of the country's production. In many articles of steel, a single corporation controls 75 to 80% of the output, and in some lines, even more. In sugar, about 90%. In petroleum, at least 82%. Since the return to prosperity in 1898, railroad consolidation on a scale hitherto unequaled has been underway. More than half of the railroad mileage of the United States is now under the control of 6 financial interests, 4 of which at least each approach a limit of mileage of 20,000 miles. That's straight from the report, telling you just how much monopolies were being built up and just how much of industry was being controlled by a very small percentage of people. The Rockefellers in oil, the Havmeyers in sugar, the Dukes in tobacco, the Mellons in aluminum, the Carnegies and Fricks in iron and steel, and the Morgans in the railroads, and the newly rising electrical manufacturing industry were moved in their trust building activities by a desire not only to eliminate competition and thereby fix prices at the most profitable levels, but also to beat down organized labor and thereby lower wages. They were fully aware that through the power of added capital, they could take a more independent stand against the trade union movement, particularly in view of the fact that union organization was splintered along craft lines, as the Industrial Commission put it in its final report. And what they said in their final report was, There can be little doubt that in many cases the organizers of combinations have felt that through the power of added capital and the possibility of filling orders from any of the various plants, they would be more independent in their dealings with trade unions. For example, in 1899, when there was a smelters strike in Colorado, the American Smelting and Refining Company closed the plants in which the strikers had been employed, transferred the work to other plants, and in this way coerced the strikers to some extent. When working men are not organized throughout the whole industry, a combination is able, in this way, to secure an advantage. So what I learned in reading that was, one, that one of our branches of government chose big business over labor, and it's supposed to be the fairest branch, the judicial branch. They're supposed to be the fair-minded ones that just read law, take the emotion out. But they also can be corrupted by moneyed interest. We already know that the presidential office has sided with big business over labor, over working people. We already know that as well. So you got the presidential office, or the executive branch, you got the judicial branch. You already know about the legislative branch and how throughout history it too has mostly favored with business over the working man or the working woman or the working people, the working class. And so we have to think about new ways on how to approach this stuff, learning from the past. You can see how these monopolies just blew up after that Sherman antitrust interpretation. And they were more so successful because we didn't have worker solidarity across industries. And when I say across industries, I mean like across industries. It would be amazing if we had worker solidarity across the entire spectrum of industry, to where we can demand like national policy on exactly what working people and what life in America should look like. Imagine if we had worker class solidarity and we all did a general strike and everybody stayed home, and we wouldn't go back to work until legislation was written, passed, and approved, and they could do it on an emergency basis, to basically provide a social safety net for all humans in America. Imagine what we can do, because the industry titans already know that if the working people don't go to work, their whole way of life collapses. They already know that. So they will employ everything to force us back to work. It would be cool if we had the solidarity and the fortitude to stay together, stand strong, and be like, nope, not until we fix this thing. Because it's, you know, you look around and life just ain't fair, man. You got kids in Flint still got dirty water. You got Mississippi with its dirty water. You got this daggum train derailment in Ohio that's spewing carcinogens, and the news won't even talk about it. There's so much stuff going on in the world, and you look around and you wonder why, and then you read a history book and you learn that it's been going on for more than 100 years. And it's just like, man, we gotta change up tactics or something. But anywho, that's today's thought. I wanted to bring this information to you because maybe it would be enlightening to you as it was for me. If you already know this information, then hey, you're ahead of the game. Spread the information and share it with folks around you. My name's Eric. Remember, the fight's not left and right, it's up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one, get out there and reach one, and there can be no union without you and I front and center. Let's go.